And I'm Guy, and this is your home for everything Alberta independence. I will say it is raining pretty hard outside. The regular viewers of the show know we already fled Canada. We now live in Mexico City, but every day around 5 p.m. during the summertime in Mexico City, there seems to always be a big storm. Yep. It is rainy season here.
True. But before we start, happy Friday, everybody. I didn't forget to say it today.
Oh, one more thing. And yeah, if the power does go out, we will be back on as soon as we can.
Yes. But thank you so much for joining us today. Please don't forget to subscribe to this show, apparently. We try to read most, if not all, of your comments live after each segment. However, we do prioritize super chats and pause the whole show for those, and those really help us out as well. And we have memberships.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get into some comments.
Well, just quickly, some housekeeping stuff for the people watching us at the top right now. Next week, unfortunately, I had an emergency trip come up, so I won't be here in Mexico City for the next, for Monday through Friday. We'll try to keep the show as consistent as possible. The times might change for the regular viewers as well, or everybody that watches afterwards, or once the show is over. You know that we have chapter markers, so you can skip to whatever segment you might like when YouTube likes to put them up. We had an issue yesterday with the American one, but hopefully it'll continue to work next week, and I'll try to announce it as much as possible on X what time it's going to be on.
Well, and I will say I will be stuck here in Mexico City by myself, so we're trying to do the show remotely, her where she's at, and here me in Mexico City by myself. Oh, the dog will be with me, I guess.
Yes, we'll see how that goes, because as you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But A2.0, so thank you so much for saying let's hit the like button right off the bat. I thought it had right off the bat. Thank you so much, 8.2.0. And also hello to Anya Zinsky that says hi, Nat and Guy. Oh, happy Friday. Happy Friday as well. Hopefully it is less rainy over there. Yvette DeVoe says happy Friday as well. Thank you. And same to you. And Summerfeet says hi all and says happy 150th. Yes, this is our 150th episode, by the way. I never noticed, and then I saw it was, it's 150 of Alberta independence.
Well, it's nice one of the viewers noticed, because right before the show, you actually mentioned it to me. So
yeah, I was like, oh, look, it's actually 150. And Mike Freedom Honey, hello, and thank you so much for being here. It says smash the like button. And that also really helps us out and helps the show kind of get to more people as YouTube sees that people like us.
Yeah, especially coming up to October 19th, hitting the like button will hopefully help get the message of Alberta independence out. So any Alberta independence videos you watch, not just ours, but if you watch the Unacceptable Fringe or something like that, hit the like button. We really need the message going out leading up to the referendum. And
also huge kudos to Mike for the trolling he did and literally taking it on Forever Canada.
Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic. And then he got his picture in the paper with the Forever Canada people.
Calling it a campaign. Calling the Forever Canada
massive troll.
Yes. So thank you for doing that as well, Mike. And well done. And great idea, FH. Hello says, hello from Mexico. Hello. Kudos to both of you for this channel. I'm constantly looking for information about Alberta's independence process. I don't know if it'll be successful, but I hope it is. And it will be. I always say when Alberta is independent, not if.
Well, if we have anything to say about it, along with all the other creators in Alberta and around Canada supporting Alberta independence, we're going to push this thing over the line, not just for the non-binding referendum to send a message to Ottawa, but when that binding referendum comes, it's going to be a day to celebrate.
And great idea. Again, thank you so much. And I think you're coming from my Spanish channel as well. Again, I do have a Spanish channel that is on pause right now. But one of the first videos I do plan to make is explaining the Alberta independence thing in Spanish as an edited full video. Because I still see people getting it wrong all the time here in Mexico when they report on it.
Yeah, and I will say thank you to everybody that's been tuning into our American show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're trying to get the Republicans over the line for the House and the Senate, and hopefully J.D. Vance in 2028. Because of this non-binding referendum in Alberta takes longer than expected, we're going to need a president after Trump that will recognize Alberta as an independent nation.
Yes, and James B says to Mike Freedom Honey, yes, smash the forever communist bus. LOL. And let's start with breaking news.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Extra, extra, read all about it.
That was a lot of announcements, apologies, but let's start.
Well, and I will say for the breaking news, I always put anything in about the USMCA and any movement on there. And there was big movement today, as well as a conservative possibly stepping down in September, it looks like.
So let's start with this from Brian Gertison saying, quote, the CBC is priming the public, as they usually do, for what's coming in regard to trade concessions. They clearly have just been all given this information from the PMO and Prime Minister's office, and we're told to hammer the point that supply management is not going anywhere. You can bet that is a done deal. The media just has to softly hand feed it to the elbows up crowd as to convince them it's the right decision, even though it's essentially completely against what they thought they voted for.
Well, and we got 2 articles on this. We actually have the details of what the compromises are, and there are a ton of them. Mark Carney tries to play hardball for years, not even really starting the negotiations, just in basic talks before you even get into negotiations. Mexico, on the other hand, is on their third round of serious talks with the Americans now. And then he wants to go soft. What he needs to do is put everything on the table at once and start negotiating a deal. Don't give, don't take, just to negotiate a firm deal like the Mexicans are doing right now. It was the right strategy. Other countries have also demonstrated what the right strategy is. Just make a full-on deal with all the leverage you have and all the concessions you're ready to make.
But let's watch CBC gaslight everybody. Oh no. Do you hear anything?
Mm-mm.
Me either.
We'll try to connect the sound through the computer there.
Okay. 1 second.
Oh, try it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it should work now.
This is the first time we've sort of gotten some insight into what Canada is willing to do, what Canada is really pushing for. The big headline out of this is sort of the concessions Canada appears to be willing to sort of put on the table in order to get something in exchange for that. It has to do with the booze bans. It has to do with the way that dairy quotas are looked at, not a dismantling of supply management. We just need to make that very explicitly clear. And then some tariffs that retaliatory tariffs Canada has imposed related to the auto sector. Canada is willing to sort of pull back and meet some American demands related to those in order to make sure those 50% tariffs don't come into effect on August 19th, to get those CUSMA negotiations back on track and to get some sectoral tariff relief when it comes to steel, aluminum, and lumber. This is the first time we've sort of...
I thought it was a no compromise campaign. It's all compromises.
Well, yeah, and she's just looking stressed out. The elbows up. People, I watch a lot of liberal media. They want Carney to go harder, harder, harder. They're going to be extremely upset about this. Very interesting. I think it's the bad move no matter what he does at this point, because he's trying to go tit for tat, deal for deal, and let's make a deal here, let's make a deal there. That's how you're going to really wind up with the worst deal possible. You need to, again, put everything on the table at once and negotiate everything at once. Don't give, don't take, just put everything on the table for a long-term deal so businesses in Canada and the United States know the direction going forward, as well as international trade.
And again, he's already kind of proven with the Gordie Howe Bridge and a bunch of other dumb decisions that he made because he wasn't able to properly negotiate, Mark Carney, with the US and Donald Trump, and Trump obviously, evidently taking advantage of this as well. The more and more he tries to kind of patchwork fix things now, it's going to look worse and worse, but might look better and better for an independent Alberta, because now you can point and say, see, they continue to lie and they continue to not fulfill the campaign things that we didn't even want, but that they said that they were going, well, he said he was going to do as a master negotiator.
Well, the only way forward is to start going into structured negotiations. They're not even in formal negotiations yet. They need to get to that stage and they need to press it. It took the Mexicans a year to get where they're at, and they're in the final stages of negotiation. This isn't like a regular negotiation that the United States would have with the EU or the UK. Mexico and Canada are special trading partners. These are really intricate long-term deals, so you can't just get it overnight.
But next, Millennial Grump says, quote, ending booze bans, lifting retaliatory tariffs on the US autos, and making changes on dairy. Just a masterclass by Mark Carney. Good grief, all this could have been avoided last January if Canada negotiated in good faith instead of electing Mr. Elbows.
Yeah, all the leverage that he supposedly had, which was no leverage at all, basically, he's just giving away for almost nothing. It's this 50% tariff coming off, but that just shows the Americans that's a real pressure point. Donald Trump can bring those up at any point they want and kind of focus in on those same industries. This is why it's a bad deal to be nice or be mean. Just be normal, negotiate everything at once. That's the way forward. That's what's worked for every other country. You're going to have to make some compromises, but a deal with compromises gives you long-term stability and saves a lot of industries within Canada.
What's also incredibly infuriating is that this could have been an angle that the Conservatives could have taken against Mark Carney and saying we should be negotiating as a full force. We shouldn't be putting our elbows up. And yet the lapdogs did exactly the opposite by saying, no, yes, we side with Mark Carney. Yes, all Canada is so great. We're going to defend Canada and protect it, instead of saying he clearly could not negotiate, and then put the evidence out there as to what he hasn't done and what he's in the position that he's put Canada into now. But now they can't, because they've essentially just knelt a while ago.
Well, I feel like for about a year, Mark Carney was gaslighting the Canadian public, acting like they were in formal negotiations, which they weren't. And it took the Mexicans to call out the Canadians, say, we need you at the table if we want to renegotiate the USMCA between all three countries. Mexico wanted the deal with all three countries. I understand America wants a deal with Mexico and probably a separate deal with Canada. But after the Mexicans came out and said the Canadians aren't even showing up to the meetings, the Americans confirmed that. And then that's when kind of Mark Carney was exposed, and then he was further exposed by showing Canada wasn't even in formal talks at that point. They are way behind the dime right now.
That, but also that the whole talking point that, oh, the U.S. is the one that doesn't want to come to the table, oh, Canada hasn't really been able to do anything because the U.S. doesn't want to talk to us, was completely fake. Because again, Mexico doesn't really win much by coming out and saying, Canada, we need you over here, come on, and having to say that out loud. So Canada reacts and does something, which it kind of did now.
But the Americans didn't want to deal with the Canadians, which they obviously do. They would just pull out of the deal. Pulling out of the deal means giving a 6-month notice at this point. That's the stage they're at. At any point, the Americans can give a 6-month notice and kind of pull out of the USMCA. They're not doing that. So they're obviously willing to negotiate. They just don't want to play these games Mark Carney is playing. They don't want to play good cop. They don't want to play bad cop. They just want to go to formal negotiations like they're doing with the Mexicans right now.
And lastly, as you were mentioning, Mark Nixon says, quote, CTV is reporting on Larry Brock's departure as Conservative MP. Of course, they had to add it at the very end. This is the 7th Conservative MP to depart since last year's election. He's not leaving because the leadership of Pierre Poilievre, although they want to claim that it is. And again, we see...
And he's an absolutely fantastic MP, and I don't think there's any backroom deals going on here. I think he's looking at the long-term vision of his career. That being said, this will weaken Pierre Poilievre and his branch of the Conservatives, because we all know Doug Ford and Jason Kenney have the knives out right now, as well as a lot of the Conservative power base, which is absolutely ridiculous. Even though I might not like Pierre Poilievre because he doesn't support Alberta independence, he's the best you're going to do for a leader in Canada. But again, another Conservative stepping down. This could also lead way to Danielle Smith possibly stepping down in her leadership role in Alberta and being the compromise candidate for the new opposition leader at some point.
Conservative Larry Brock, the Ontario MP who represents the riding of Brantford, Brant South Six Nations, revealed he is stepping down next month to return to a position at the Brantford Crown Attorney's Office. In a statement on social media, Pierre Poilievre praised Brock for his, quote, tireless work. He is the 7th Conservative MP to leave Poilievre's caucus since the federal election last year.
And he is one of the stronger MPs. And here's the thing. He's not a backbencher. He's one of your top candidates there. Now, I don't think he's really strong enough to replace Pierre Poilievre, but he is one of the stronger individuals that he has in his caucus. And I'm sure he's sorry to see him go. It's going to be really, really hard to replace him at that point.
But I would say, even if there's no backroom deals and it's not maybe to do anything to do with Pierre Poilievre, it does put another 7th stain on Pierre Poilievre and his rule of the Conservatives, and it's coming apart at the seams a little bit.
Well, I don't think that would really matter if it wasn't for Doug Ford, Jason Kenney, and behind the scenes, as much as the mainstream media wants to say nothing's going on, there's obviously something going on. Corey tonight was trying to make a hit campaign on Pierre Poilievre. Jason Kenney has a formal staff. It looks like he wants to make a run at this thing. Neither Jason Kenney nor Doug Ford are going to be accepted by the mass Conservative base within Canada. Danielle Smith, on the other hand, potentially would, and she could be that compromise candidate. That being said, she's basically Pierre Poilievre in a dress, and Alberta has already seen through her. The rest of Canada, though, seems to love her at this point.
Yes, but I will say, I mean, the big conservative base did also vote for Erin O'Toole, the Tool, so.
Well, the one good thing about Danielle Smith, if she does step down in Alberta, which I think would be good for Alberta, and we can get somebody that maybe is a little bit more open-minded to independence, but she has negotiated with American business individuals, as well as going to meet with Trump and the Trump people. And she's also negotiated with Mark Carney. So that's going to look good, I think, to the moderate liberal base. Possibly if they get further upset with Mark Carney with the soft dealings on the USMCA, maybe they would be opening to vote for a female that has showing a willingness to negotiate with both sides. So she has a little bit of a resume when it comes to negotiation, when Pierre Poilievre kind of doesn't at this point.
Yes. But now let's go back to your comments and then we'll head into Alberta Stay Free. Cassie Jean says, way to go, Mike. Yes, way to go. Says, loved it. Same here. James B says, sounds like Trump wants Rubio. By the sounds of it, either way, Vance or Rubio would be great.
Yeah, we definitely want a JD Vance as the primary candidate. I don't mind Rubio as a secondary candidate. He was a neocon for a long time before he put on the MAGA hat. So you really got to question the long-term goals, especially when it comes to war and other things like that. That being said, JD Vance is a very populist candidate. I think he's the most likely candidate to recognize Alberta as an independent nation if he does get in. But if you pair a JD Vance with a Marco Rubio, I don't see how you're going to beat that. That is a very strong ticket. It's been a long time in the U.S. since you had two candidates paired up, both of whom could have been president. This is going to require the Democrats or whoever runs against them to put up two strong candidates as well. That's going to be a hard thing to do. Marco Rubio also appeals to the Latino base in the United States.
Some of it. James B says Carney needs a wig and some big red shoes, clown. And he does have a weird facial structure similar to Pennywise. Like just picture him with like white makeup, like clown makeup, and he kind of can do it. John B says, what's Call Me Danny Smith doing?
Yeah.
She's trying to vie for power within Ottawa, I would say.
Yeah, she's had her eyes on Ottawa for a while now. And that's when a lot of people in Alberta started saying, this is an invasion of the body snatchers. What's happening to Danielle Smith? What happened is she had her sights set on the premiership first. She said whatever she had to say to get in and towed a populist conservative line. And then as soon as she set her sights on Ottawa and seen a chink in the armor and possibly a path to the conservative opposition leader, she's completely flipped her script and she's willing to say whatever it takes to get into that role, I think, now. And this is something I said about Tucker Carlson and the woke right in the United States. We've already seen this happen in Alberta with Jason Kenney and Danielle Smith. Populist leaders willing to say anything in order to get into power, but don't really have that solid belief in their first principles. It's more a power play.
David W. Carlson, hello, says howdy from Parkland County. Hello. And John B. says Trump is not going to negotiate. Trump said he's done with Clowney. He has to seem like he's trying to get, the best deal for the U.S. But I'm pretty sure he's done deep down.
And Carney's exposed himself now as he is really oppositional to everything the United States is trying to do with bringing in the golden age for the Western Hemisphere. He is trying to align the secondary powers in the world against the United States, and he is weaponizing Canada. So it's going to be really hard. Mexico took the right path at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a big fan of the Mexican president, but I'll say I'm glad she made the decision she did and didn't take the path of Mark Carney.
David Wallace, hello, says, remember, Danielle will be negotiating a new deal with Canada after an October positive vote. Well, not if she's not there anymore. John B.
And there needs to be a leadership review on Danielle Smith, and we need to make sure that she knows she's unwelcome as the party leader. So hopefully we can get her to step down on her own and this thing doesn't have to get messy.
True. James B says, so play elbows up, anger the USA, then try to negotiate a deal. At what point is that any kind of good strategy? Is this a new world order? Kind of stinks.
Yeah, and it does stink like a new world order. Why? Because you feel like somebody's really pulling the puppet strings of Mark Carney behind the scenes, because this is not how you would go about getting a deal with the United States if that was really what you wanted. But I think what he wants is to either wait Donald Trump out or really try to hurt Donald Trump for the midterms or the 2028 election.
James B says, Canadians don't like Mark Clowney either. No. And hold on. John B says Danny Smith is going to take piss poor's seat. Piss poor is Pierre Poilievre because PP. Yes, and says Danny Smith is useless. The Truth 99 says Alberta independence, and that is the truth. Option Trader Hello says, hiya, I was told that I'm American and should stay quiet on Alberta. I have investments and business in Alberta. I have skin in the game. I also have family in Toronto. I've worked in Alberta. Believe us, we get these comments every day.
Don't even worry about it. We've been more for Alberta than independence. I mean, Canada stepped over every one of our red lines. We already fled the country because there wasn't something like Alberta independence at the time. Now there is, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure Alberta independence happens. Anybody that's sensible in Alberta aren't going to give comments like that. They're going to want all the help they can get, whether it's from us or people from the United States as well.
Exactly, especially if you have investments there. But it doesn't matter what you have or don't have. Anybody can talk about anything, anytime they want. If you do value free speech and freedom, that should be your number one principle. And
another thing, you just have to realize this thing could get really messy in Alberta independence after we win a binding referendum. Canada may make a million excuses saying, we're not recognizing you, we're not going to let you leave, period, and try to pull a rabbit out their hat. At that point, they're going to need somebody to get involved that isn't Albertan, and that somebody is either going to be Donald Trump or a JD Vance to recognize Alberta as an independent nation. If Alberta decides unilateral declaration of independence is the only option left.
And the rest of the shield of the Americas, which includes a lot of Latin American countries, but they have no say, then their citizens can't talk about it either. And again, it's a ridiculous point, but unfortunately there are some people that still think that way, but also being able to think of the opportunity with Alberta's independence of other places around the world that are also having similar fights and struggles or have been thinking similar things, that they want to escape their totalitarian regimes, and also be an example for those. So if nobody can talk about it who's not Albertan, well, then it can't also receive the support.
What we also need to realize here is a lot of censorship bills and mechanisms are coming into play. They haven't been fully enacted. He's literally passing them all, and I think he's going to wreck them all at once. If we get past this non-binding referendum, going into that binding referendum, there's going to be major censorship around Alberta independence. Our only way to potentially break that censorship may be American media at some point, and we need to start building those connections with Americans, with American social media,
and rising that interest in Americans themselves. But Option Trader also says, however, as I was told, I'm not Canadian, lucky you, so I'll watch your show and stay quiet. You guys do a good job. Please never stay quiet on any opinion you have, otherwise you're essentially bending to the mob and not doing the free speech that we all say we value so much. On that note, let's actually go into Alberta Stay Free. And let's start with this. Hold on. With this from Farm Geek or Tanya Clement saying, quote, billions of dollars leave Alberta every year through equalization, yet our governments throw these numbers around as if they're just another line in a budget. But do we actually stop and think about what $1 billion really means?
And I think about this all the time. Like, I remember when they used to talk millions, now they just talk billions like it's absolutely nothing. This is life-changing for a lot of smaller countries as well. Billions of dollars invested right without the corruption can make real change in a country. The problem when they talk billions, 50% of that is usually corruption right off the top, especially if it's in military, healthcare, or other industrial complexes. Mm-hmm. There needs to be more transparency in government, especially where this money is going. There's AI now. I want every dollar tracked and open sourced.
Hey, Alberta. You ever notice how we throw around the word billions like it's nothing? Like it doesn't even mean anything anymore? I think we've gotten a little disconnected from what that actually looks like. So let's slow it down for a second and make this real. Imagine this. The government decides they're going to collect that extra $28 billion Albertans overpay every year. But instead of just numbers on a screen, they're going to come for it in cash, $20 bills. So one day a semi-truck pulls into your yard with a big shipping container on the back, and they're there to collect your share, about $6,000. So you go inside, you grab your money, and you start counting it out. 1, 2, $320 bills. Money that you earned, early mornings, late nights, risk, weather, work. You hand it over, and they toss it into the container. Then they go to your spouse. Same thing. Then your kids. Then they head down the road, house to house, farm to farm, town to town. Every single Albertan doing the exact same thing.
And we'll keep playing this, but it's only going to get worse. He's trying to 6x different carbon taxes. And the fact that they want to put these onerous carbon taxes on Alberta should have an exemption if any province does, and they can have an exemption once they actually get their independence. Zero tax on oil being consumed within the province itself.
Now here's the part that stops you for a second. Every 2 of those shipping containers full, that's $1 billion. 2 of them. So picture it, truck after truck after truck, filling up with Alberta's $20 bills until there are 56 shipping containers packed full of Alberta's $20 bills. And then they just drive away. Half of them headed straight to Quebec. And you're standing there in your yard watching it go. Maybe you wave or maybe you give them the finger, but either way, that money is gone and nothing comes back to you. So just sit with that for a second.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And I talk a lot about this, and I don't know why more people aren't, but no taxes on citizens within Alberta. The infrastructure will be built on the back of natural resource taxes, large and medium business taxes, even small businesses that are family-owned businesses with 3 or less employees should be exempt from taxes. So families can start small businesses and get those to medium-sized businesses.
And also for other parts of the world, I would also say what happens in Alberta and what Canada has allowed and the way it's been designed is very attractive to a lot of others in power that are thinking, well, how can I, again, socialists always need other people's money and it only works until they run out of other people's money. In Canada, luckily they have Alberta, which is basically all of people's money going to elsewhere instead of staying within Alberta. But don't think that this couldn't be tried to be implemented within the US.
Well, we need to really start thinking of the tax structure here. I mean, Ron DeSantis is trying something very innovative down in Florida where they want to get rid of property taxes. Trump is thinking about tariffs in order to get rid of taxes on citizens as well in the long term if it is successful. Alberta with other countries with similar natural resource portfolios that are sometimes half the size of Alberta actually have no taxes on their citizens. Alberta also has a very small population, so it should be very easy to go no tax on citizens in a free and independent Alberta, period.
But let's go watch someone put their elbows up Mark Carney's behind. Morgan Cameron Ross says, quote, Canada, since Mark Carney became Prime Minister in March 2025, he was selected, has outperformed everyone in America, the Eurozone, and anywhere else in the world. This is the Bloomberg editor-in-chief, Matt Winkler, and I really think he should step down because he's insane.
This was some of the craziest gaslighting I have seen, even in liberal echo chambers that I watch a lot because I want to know the other side's talking points so I can dispute them. I haven't seen anybody with their elbows this far up their own ass before. I mean, we can play it here.
Whether it's IMAX, Cenovus, which is an energy company, Canada, since Mark Carney became the Prime Minister in March of 2025, has outperformed everyone in America and also the Eurozone and everywhere in the world. The 10 largest stock markets in the world, Canada appreciated the most, more than 40%. Okay, and we know the past year has been pretty good for stocks. Yeah. Canada's done great. Its bond market is also doing great, partly because the inflation rate in Canada, unlike the Eurozone or America, is actually trending lower, okay, and is outperforming both the Eurozone and the US. Aside from the money coming in, Canada is beloved. When I say that, if you go to Atlas, World Atlas, Canada is right up there with Switzerland as the most loved country in the world, okay? And guess why? Because of its policies being so reasonable to everybody else in the world. And where do you think that comes from? It comes from this guy, Mark Carney. Who is he? Well, he happens to be a Rhodes Scholar. He was a governor of the Bank of England as the first non-British citizen to do that. He was governor of the Bank of Canada. He was running Goldman Sachs operations before he got to the Bank of Canada. So this is somebody the world is, and spectacular Davos man. So this is somebody the world knows very well. He's
you can leave it there.
He's very reasonable, he said.
What a spectacular Davos man. Like, that is supposed to be a plus here. Canada is not working for Canadians. It may very well be working for Indians, like you said there. They're beloved around the world, especially when it comes to India and the amount of mass immigrants that are coming in. It's also working very well for, I guess, the stock market class that has a lot of their assets invested outside of the country in the American stock market as well. But for the working working class, blue collar worker and families and farmers, Canada no longer works.
Well, and evidently he doesn't live in Canada. So
Yeah.
of course he thinks that. And from the outside, he looks great. Oh, he's such a wonderful man. When he did that stupid Davos speech that everybody was essentially bending down over for, it was the same ridiculous thing where he's saying exactly the same things that those at the top want to hear so they can stay at the top.
Well, everybody absolutely, like the liberals, when I watch liberal shows, they absolutely love that Davos speech. Like it was the best thing that ever happened. But what happened after that Davos speech, he had to try to back that thing up. So he tried to play hardball for 4 or 5 months with Donald Trump. And now he's suffering for it because he had no real leverage. And he absolutely sabotaged the USMCA in that time period. And now he wants to say, sorry, I'll take down my tariffs. I'll take down my leverage. Let's just make a deal. It doesn't work like that. And now he's paying the price.
But also, as we showed for example, with Jen Gerson from The Line, who was at one point appreciative of it, but even Rosie Barton, people in Canadian media itself from the liberal side or the insane side are starting to notice and are starting to hear, you hear them being more and more worried with that first clip we played of this lady trying to explain things away and trying to gaslight the Canadian public because they're running out of options because they have to continue to be their lapdogs, but it's getting harder and harder as time goes on.
Well, within liberal circles, when I watch a lot of these podcasts that really lift up the curtain to tell you kind of what they're thinking and what they're saying now, because these are politically engaged liberals. They understand the economy's in a bad situation, and even they are realizing it's going to fall off a cliff. And they're talking about bailing on Canada for the EU or the United States. And these are people that absolutely hate Donald Trump, and they're willing to put their differences aside because for the sake of their family, they understand America has a very strong economy compared to Canada or the rest of the world right now.
Yeah. But next, piece of hope, Joshua Ranger says, quote, Alberta will be a great country. Yes, it will. And especially as fast as it can be.
I thought this was just a good little clip of a representative of a young, average Albertan. So
just in the store, and it was crazy. Chicken was over $17 for a chicken, which is just wild. We're here in Alberta, in the great Republic of Alberta that will soon be, and the prices in here are just astounding. Like, I've never seen so much expensive things at a grocery store. So this is what we're trying to fight for. We're trying to fight for lower grocery prices, lower cost of living here in Canada. And Alberta Republic, that is what we're aiming for. We don't need any of this elbows up crap anymore. We are fighting for Alberta independence.
yeah, and when we first get our independence, we can go zero trade with the United States, which is going to bring in a lot of cheap food while we set up our infrastructure. So you're going to see immediately prices come down, which would be fantastic. And just before the show, I was actually playing some clips. I guess they were compiled together about British people going to Canada, and they were complaining. They said, what? And they were going to like box superstores that weren't even that expensive, and they couldn't believe the prices. And these are British people complaining about it. And I think British prices are high to begin with.
Well, and they think they're in a cost of living crisis. It's just because Canadians aren't allowed to really talk about it because now soon it'll be, or now currently is, also hate speech. So you're not allowed to even mention the fact that you're struggling. But there are, if you dig a tiny little bit on any social media, you'll find video after video after video of just regular people all over Canada saying, I can't, especially young ones, saying, I can't afford life, I can't afford rent, I can't afford food. And yet there's people taking advantage of food banks, for example.
Yeah.
And lastly, that Alberta Decides says, don't vote option 2 if you're satisfied with the status quo. Unfortunately, for some people, that is true. For everyone tired of Ottawa extracting Alberta's wealth, attacking our economy, and overriding our interests, the choice is clear. Vote option 2 on October 19th. Don't vote option 2, however, if you enjoy sending Ottawa $20 billion more than Alberta gets back, paying carbon taxes that drive up everyday costs, uncontrolled mass immigration, federal attacks on Alberta energy, equalization after Alberta voted no, which is insane, Ottawa deciding Alberta's future.
And leave that up there for a second. And all of these are going to get worse if you vote to stay in Canada. Those remittance payments of $20 billion are going to go up. Carbon taxes are supposed to 6x. Mass immigration immigration is supposed to open the doors back up massively at the end of 2027, 2028. Every one of these things are bad now, and they're earmarked, and the mechanisms are already baked into the cake to get 10 times worse over the next couple of years.
And even for within Alberta, we already heard Danny Girl say that she wanted and she needed more immigration, and that she encouraged that to continue to happen within the province. So, I mean, you know where it's headed. You know what the plan is now.
Well, first it was, I want more immigration. I want to go from 5 million to 10 million because I want more political power. Then everybody pushed back against that. She completely changed her line, put a bunch of questions on a referendum about immigration. And before the population has even voted on that, she's saying, well, we need more immigration again. She just made that statement the other day. We played it last week.
Mm-hmm. But let's go back to your comments, and then we'll head into Alberta politics. Rage Against Machine Hello says, failures is the methods. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, allows them to continue to enforce it.
And I'm fine with some failure if it doesn't look like a planned destruction on every single level. No. Donald Trump is going to fail here or there, but you can really feel that he's trying to push not only the United States, but the whole Western Hemisphere in the right direction. And you're going to have some hiccups along the way, and that's fine as long as you're really doing the best you can at the core. And Carney isn't doing that. It's a controlled destruction of Canada and an intentional federalization, not just of the natural resource sector, but I would say of a lot of other sectors by giving out loans and potentially taking percentages of major businesses in Canada eventually.
Sean says, hello, Sean. Says, I can't believe he took on my dare. Dang, sorry, guys. Still funny. Which one?
Oh,
the insane Bloomberg guy?
No, maybe about the Forever Canada bus with Mike Freedom Honey.
Hopefully. Sean says, tell them Canada is really liked, but only due to Carney and people like Switzerland, not because of its natural beauty or friendly tax regimes and asset protection, but because of the politicians. That man was insane. But let's continue with your comments. James B says a whole uniparty will become unnecessary as soon as we vote the hell out of this Chinese-driven communist nightmare.
Well, I was watching a fantastic interview about all the leadership in Canada, how Canada is not a real country. It's actually a synthetic state. And if you read the original founding documents, which still stand to this day, their allegiance is to Britain and the British state. King Charles is the king. Canada is not a real country. It has the illusion of a real country. And there's oaths of secrecy taken through the leadership. Canada's only had one, maybe 1.5 real leaders that wanted to go down a different path and wanted real freedom for the country.
And David W. Carlson says to Option Trader, your opinion is valued, fire away. Yes, please continue commenting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And John B. says, Shane Baum is okay. She doesn't impress me as a Mexican president. Neither does she impress me. James B. asks.
And you have to remember, like, we used to get a lot of flack because we're from Canada, but we already moved to Mexico. What we want to see is Alberta get its independence, and we're fighting for that. But what Albertans need to realize is take all the help you can get, because you have some Albertans that are Albertans that are working against independence, which is absolutely ridiculous. The fact that they can't see what's going on in Canada right now.
True. James B. asks, question is still, how bad is the corruption in Mexico? Sheinbaum might not have much of a choice. And that's what I continuously say. Yes, she is coming to the table and having to come to the table because the U.S. has also, again, read that national security strategy document that came out in November. You'll realize everything the U.S. and Donald Trump and the administration have been doing makes sense once you put it into context that they've been planning this for a while.
In the context of the Western Hemisphere as well.
And with the security, everything they've done in terms of security in Mexico and trying to not just secure the border, but also the country itself and go against what continues to perpetuate within the country. Yes, we have a lot of corruption here in Mexico. Yes, it's very widely known. But in a way, the fact that we are getting a better deal is because Sheinbaum kind of has to just listen to what the U.S. says.
Yeah, basically it's forced leverage, which is absolutely fantastic. And I'm glad to see Trump using that leverage because it's cleaning up not just Mexico, but a lot of Central and South American countries as well.
Option Trader says, your entire Conservative Party is actively fighting Alberta independence behind closed doors. They have to for their political futures. Alberta Conservatives can go either way. PP and Smith are against. and says Canada is not economically viable without Alberta. No politician outside of Alberta will support that fight publicly. Your fight is public and private, and you're in much a nastier fight than you know.
Well, yeah, it's not even behind closed doors. They're outright opposing Alberta independence. At the same time, the Conservative Party of Canada are saying, oh, we have the same first principles. We want these things, but you have to wait 3 years for the next election, vote harder, vote Pierre Poilievre, and you can't go after these things as individual citizens. Alberta independence says no to that. We're an independent grassroots movement led by citizens, and we're going to get these things because politicians have shown their ineptitude to actually deliver, and they have shown themselves to be part of a uniparty, in my opinion, at this point, and that includes Danielle Smith and Pierre Poilievre. And there are a lot of conservative commentators within Canada outside of Alberta that just haven't seen through the circus yet.
James B says to Option Trader, these parties are all in bed with each other. Voting is worse than a joke. Alberta leaving is the only way forward to see some sanity and common sense. And again, it's not like Alberta and even other provinces haven't tried already, haven't tried to both leave, both stop the equalization payments, or at least change them a little bit, reopen up the Constitution maybe. All of that has obviously been impossible because it doesn't benefit those that ultimately control everything, which is why the only option left is for Alberta to become independent.
Yeah, and it's obvious it's a uniparty, and it's not obvious to everybody because they think, oh, Pierre Poilievre's actually espousing conservative ideals. It's what's called a controlled dialectic in politics, meaning they want to show that there is another option so people don't get upset and revolt and things like that. But really, he has absolutely no power. It's a majority government right now for Mark Carney. There's nothing Poilievre can do, and that's the way they want to keep it. It's ridiculous.
Option Trader says, I've spent my entire adult life doing business with foreign investments and governments. Your government and your Conservative Party are fighting your freedom movement because it doesn't benefit them.
Yeah, and I'm going to try to get an interview. I recently got the contact information for somebody that knows the ins and outs in the entire history of every premier that's been in power, why the Conservative and the Liberal Party are a uniparty, and to explain why Canada is a synthetic state. It's not a real country. And when you look at the founding documents, that is literally laid out in the founding documents.
You have a king. Ep.150 says, if anyone still trusts Danielle Kenney, they need their heads checked. Funny, because about a month ago, people were fighting with us saying, no, you have to trust Danielle, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I stuck to my guns on that, and I'm glad I did because it seems like a lot of people are starting to come around to that way of thinking, and we're going to need to get rid of Danielle Smith if we want a real chance to get this binding referendum to happen within 6 to 12 months.
Sherman Forbes says, Bill 14 that Danielle Smith passed needs to be talked about. She put a fix in to screw people over.
She's not doing shit. And I'm just going to say this. She says, we're not going to enforce any hate speech laws. And that's exactly what they're doing right now. The precedents that are being set with these hate speech laws are being set within Alberta. There's two major cases the Justice Institute is fighting against right now.
Sean says, King Charles is the head of the state, and an independent Alberta will have an elected head of state in a republic, not a monarchy. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Alberta needs to break free now so we actually have real freedom and not just the illusion of it. And that illusion of freedom, even that is disappearing in the rest of Canada right now.
And Sean says, and this is what we also bring up all the time, the Conservative Party will never have power or close to it with an independent Alberta out of the Confederacy. And because the party itself is kind of ripping apart at the seams while everybody tries to stick it back together.
Well, there is one way, and we used to talk a lot about this, but if Alberta gets its independence and then Quebec gets its independence shortly after, I don't know how likely that is, but if Quebec and Alberta both separate, that actually turns Canada conservative by the number of seats.
So that'll be an interesting option. But Jess and GP, hello, thank you for being here. Says, hi, all, was watching 2 times and finally caught up. Thank you. Says, Guy and Girl will miss you when you're on your trip, Nat.
Yeah.
I don't think they will. Not that much. It's just it's less than a week. Sean says, I will see you guys later. Got to do something. Please be safe out there, Sean. Thank you for being here. And Michael Drader says, next time Danielle claims she longs for a sovereign Alberta in a united Canada, I'll say I long for a sovereign Canada outside a disconnected Alberta. That's a better way to put it. But now on that note, let's go to Alberta politics.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
And let's start with this from Tanya Clemens again, saying, quote, a little in international attention on the forum today, ABC Australia came to interview me about Alberta's independence movement and the remarkable parallels with Western Australia.
Yeah, and this was absolutely fantastic. And it doesn't look like it's necessarily going to be a hit piece. You never know with ABC, especially on an international level. But it's
a
good,
different ABC.
But it's good to see the Alberta independence making international news. I wish there was more American attention on it. I think there will be once the binding referendum comes up.
Do you want me to read it all or no?
No, you can just play it. It's a short clip. It's nice.
Hey folks, you're used to seeing lots of people come out to the farm, but today I've got ABC Australia
Oh, turn it up.
Okay, I didn't know.
here, interested in what's happening in Alberta independence movement. Thanks for coming, guys.
No worries.
Hey folks.
And absolutely fantastic. And I'm just glad international media is starting to recognize.
But I do think it's important to maybe read a little bit of the context of what happened in Western Australia. Most people don't know that in 1933, Western Australia voted by nearly 68% in favor of leaving the Australian Federation. Like Alberta today, many Western Australians believe they contributed far more to the national economy than they received in return. They were a resource-rich, export-driven region with a distinct identity, separated by thousands of kilometers from the country's political and population centers. Many felt decisions affecting their industries and livelihoods were made by governments that neither understood nor represented them. Those themes sound familiar.
Well, and this is very interesting. And that sentiment might still lie within a lot of Western Australia because it's a heavy natural resource area. And reaching out to content creators there or media there, as well as the United States, those might be two regions we want to start reaching out to, especially after the non-binding referendum's done.
And again, a lot of people also don't realize maybe outside of Alberta that this Alberta's independence has been going on ever since basically Alberta became a province in the first place, because it wasn't under the terms that they originally wanted to join Canada with, and they weren't really listened to from inception, from the beginning. So this is a burden essentially that Alberta has been carrying ever since they got stuck to Canada, and it's been going on since around 1900s.
Yeah.
I tripped there over my words, but Rebel News says, quote, the federal levy is scheduled to increase by 10 cents per liter on gasoline and 4 cents per liter on diesel. Nearly 2/3 of Canadians reject Carney's September gas hike, and yet it's going to happen anyways, because who cares what you all think?
Well, and everything Canada spins this on is absolutely ridiculous, whether it's the money laundering machine of the Ukraine war or climate change causes or LGBTQ overseas, which Canada is now trying to fund because the United States has pulled the funding. And that was a great move by Donald Trump, by the way. Gas prices are so high right now. The fact that they can't give a reprieve until they naturally go down if they want to put that in. But the big picture here is once Alberta gets its independence, consumption of gas within Alberta should be tax-free for citizens, period.
But also the fact that, again, even though they continue taxing X, Y, and Z things, and up the wazoo for most people, for all people, I would say all Canadians, things that should be benefiting Canadians with that money, as you mentioned, aren't doing so. How is the healthcare system? How is the education system, the public education system in Canada? And it still sucks because clearly they're not. This money isn't going there for Canadians, or what they're supposedly saying it's for.
Your own natural resource sector, your beef sector, your dairy sector, all these things are way over-regulated. It's cheaper to buy beef from halfway across the world than it is from just down the street within Alberta because of the amount of regulations. And that's just not in beef. That's in so many industries. I mean, the oil and gas is coming out of the ground in Alberta, yet they're taxing you to wazoo on it. The same thing with the minerals. The reason manufacturing isn't immense in Canada is because of the amount of regulation by this crazy liberal government.
And then they wonder why is all business leaving Canada now? But when they cover it, because they usually don't like to cover the kind of news.
What you're going to see happen once Alberta gets its independence, manufacturing is just going to grow at a massive rate. And I'm talking about from getting the minerals out the ground to the finished product. The entire line of manufacturing will grow inside Alberta. Right now it exists within Ottawa because Ottawa leverages what Alberta has in order to place manufacturing monopolies within Ottawa.
Well, at the rate it should actually be growing at.
Yeah.
Without the fake restrictions that they impose on it. Speaking of fake restrictions, Rebel News says, quote, just 187 businesses accounted for more than 12,000 firearms in the federal buyback program. They're still at it with this. The final number of firearms actually surrendered by individual owners has not been publicly disclosed because it would be embarrassing for them.
Yeah, because corporations may comply because they have regulations and things they can leverage on them. Individual citizens do not want this. This is a big reason why people want independence in Alberta. You know they're coming for firearms within the next 3 to 5 years, period. I'm going to be surprised if firearms even exist in a normal level within Canada. Right now, Canadians own more firearms than Americans per capita, and a lot of people don't know that. But what you can do with a firearm in Canada, they don't want you defending your own home with it. Oh, no, it's for the shooting range only.
Well, and sadly, I mean, there is an increase also in illegal firearms that they're not going after, that they don't want to log, and that they don't want to say where they're coming from or who's using them, because it would further put into evidence what they're actually importing into the country and the people that are using them. The Bishnoi gang is something very interesting that I've been noticing. But let's go back to your comments. Yvette DeVoe says, also, all our social media influencers who help bring truth and light to us, who depend on them for it, are under attack. Exactly. With all the new censorship bills being passed, and so I depend on them. And it'll continue to get worse and worse. Again, luckily, we are kind of outside of that whole mess, but potentially I do see a day when it'll be harder and harder to find us within Canada. Rage Against Machine says, Vive la... can't even say it. Vive la Revolution. Yes. Go Revolution, I guess it would be. James B says, climate change is nothing more than a new name for global warming. Scam 100%. And again, that was also another scam. There's just renaming and rebranding to continue with the grift.
They're being forced to back down from that. There was a major international vote on that, and Carney tried to... It wasn't in the major news, and Carney participated in that vote, and they want to start dismantling a lot of the carbon economic system that was ingrained into the business and banking communities, which was very, very interesting. They realize it's failing, and they realize it's turning people against them.
Option Trader says, that's all I have to share. I'm looking forward to the nation of Alberta. No, don't leave, Option Trader. And come back for the US show because you're actually there. And you can let us know as well how it's going. John B says, there is no climate change. It's a fraud thought up by the leftists. For the longest time, a lot of people think that this was kind of recent or in the early 2000s. No, this has been going on since the population boom scare, which has left us without any babies or children to actually repopulate our own countries and having to import more and more people.
It's a freaking tax scam on a global level made by economists and bankers because they can't make real products and they can't make real things. So they make up this new tax system in order to be the new economy that benefits them.
James B says, drug test Bloomberg stuff right away. And John B says, drug test this dude, the crazy guy from Bloomberg, saying that Mark Carney was the best thing that has ever happened, essentially. James B says, and a giant failure for England also. Mark Carney, yes, he was essentially one of the architects that ended up making the whole Brexit thing happen.
But yeah, well, hopefully we get the same result that happened within Brexit, because Mark Carney was over there at the same time. And one more quick thing, if you can hit the like and subscribe button, I keep forgetting to ask, and there is mass censorship going on right now.
But it really
I can see in the numbers.
Yes, and it really does help. Option Trader, you came back. Says, Canada's bonds were downgraded 3 months ago. Carney was installed by globalists as a leverage point against the U.S. And we've mentioned this time and time again, but I think as the almost only card they had left in the deck, because he was working more in the shadows in the background, including with Justin Trudeau to start commencing the mess that is now Canada. But he was the last thing they had to kind of push out there to try to push back against and put the elbows up.
Well, I was watching that interview today, and they were going over, it was like an hour. They went over Mark Carney's history and things like that. He was being groomed for a major global leadership role. And they got desperate after Trump got in office. He really threw a monkey wrench into their entire plan, and they had to put him as the head of Canada. And they're using that as an attack mechanism, or at least trying right now.
James B says, Alberta as an independent nation will have the relationship with the USA as it always should have been.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, the US already has said that they want to get direct pipelines between Alberta and the US.
Absolutely. And we do talk U.S. politics Tuesdays, Thursdays, and it's good. You see an interest from Albertans in that and in Americans in Alberta independence. It's a natural relationship. Yeah. Elbows up isn't a thing in Alberta, except for maybe that Bloomberg guy.
Some people. Drew Mitchell says, OMG, I feel so violated now having to listen to all this liberal gaslighting and Carney bootlicking. Try living in Canada for a day and turning the TV on to CTV or CBC or any of those other ones. Miss Toad, hello, says, yep, Alberta needs to get out ASAP. We don't have time to sit around hoping the Conservative Party will save us someday, because they won't. At the end of the day, number one, it's the system itself and the way it's designed and the commonwealth of it all and the king of it all, but also the fact that there's no actual desire by those in power to do anything but continue to attain and retain power.
And we have to make sure we get the right leader within the UCP. We control the memberships right now. We should be able to place who we want there. We need somebody that's going to guarantee a binding referendum within 6 to 12 months, no later than October 17th, 2027, period. And Danielle Smith's talking about 2.5 to 3 years right now. That's why she needs to go. That's not happening. You're going to be flooded by Indian immigrants that are going to vote against this thing if that happens.
Holden, hello, says, we are watching the managed decline of the entire nation. Are you having fun yet? James B. says, the globalist ideology of a one world government, new world order, etc. is a giant failure. The proof is out there right now. And a lot of people are actually living through that proof.
Yeah,
and suffering through
they're trying to reorganize and wait Trump out right now. And this is why we need to follow it up with a J.D. Vance and a Marco Rubio, because this globalist cabal won't be able to survive another administration that knows the coordination of the first administration and continues on.
And Philip Vespa, hello and thank you for being here, says the only conservatives that I actually pay attention to in Parliament are starting to drop like flies. Today is Larry Brock, tomorrow is probably Michael Barrett and others. Alberta needs independence. And again, maybe they're saying something that nobody else is. Yeah, and as much as I do say Poilievre's going to be the best leader you get inside a uniparty Canada, if he is pushed out and they don't put somebody like a Danielle Smith in there and it is a Jason Kenney or a Doug Ford, I think that's going to garner massive support within Alberta. It seems like anything the other side does right now is going to gain Alberta's support. There's not much they can do to push against this thing. You've seen that little rally they had singing Kumbaya, holding hands. Mark Carney would come to Alberta, and then Pierre Poilievre, Danielle Smith, Jason Kenney, Doug Ford. But you haven't heard much since then. I think they realize it's maybe in their best interest just to stay quiet at this point. Well, the Vice also says we need a hardline stance accounting for all scenarios. That includes Alberta's own police force, elected judges, the imperial system, etc. Just in case option 1 wins. Independence takes many forms.
Well, and I was talking about this. Even if option 2 wins in the non-binding referendum, we need to get a leader in the UCP that's going to fight for those exact things that were just mentioned, not because we're going to win them, but because it will force the federal government to stand against them and give the general population in Alberta a real-time education that the federal government isn't going to give province sovereignty. And that is extremely valuable. You would normally pay hundreds of millions of dollars for a campaign like that, but just having a leader within Alberta that will fight for its sovereignty and then force the federal government to stand against it, that will garner massive support for that binding referendum.
And make things even more obvious. Option Trader says, with respect, the answer is simple but complex. Politicians want to stay in power. They will unalive their citizens to stay in power. That makes people uncomfortable to confront.
Yeah.
Philip Vespa says, I'm not giving up on this fight. Alberta will be free from Ottawa regardless. Yes. And Option Trader says, that's why all parties collude to stay in power, because they're already there. Exactly. And says, remember, they work together, take the same PAC money and vote for their own pay raises. Exactly. I mean, once you're there, you don't want to lose it.
But I would say, remember, we're not the Quebec independence movement. The Quebec independence movement is trying to make it work through politicians. Alberta independence is a citizen-led movement. As a matter of fact, the leadership of Alberta themselves are against it. So this is a very unique stance we're taking. Alberta independence in the past have had leaders and political parties, and that's a mechanism that was able to be shut down. That's why this new strategy of being a grassroots citizen-led movement is very, very interesting, and it's working very well so far.
And actually, on that note, let's go to Alberta Personalities.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done, we're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
Because now we can see the opinion of Someone from the US, Viva Fry says, quote, Brampton, Ontario is basically India and Canada, and it's not just Brampton. Interview with journalist Taylor Hansen.
Yeah, but it's on a different level in Brampton. Brampton's starting to turn to the UK.
The best way to describe Brampton, Ontario is it's India. It is India, but in Canada. And you have, I'll give you an example in our documentary, you can see it. They have statues of, Hanuman, a Hindu god, massive monkey statue. There's a temple on the corner of almost every single street. Every advertisement you see is an Indian targeted advertisement. Everyone that you see in the community, at least a large majority of people, are all Indian. And this town actually used to be a predominantly white town. And now it is, there's basically no white people there. I mean, I believe it was 750,000 at one point, and over half of those people are Indian. And that was from, outdated numbers. They haven't done an actual update on the numbers, but you walk in Brampton and it is like you are in a completely different world. And for your viewers to kind of get a better understanding, I travel the world, I travel the country for a living. And I've been doing this since 2020. And in my whole life of traveling and doing this for a living and also living as an American, I have never seen more Indians than the time of me getting off of my plane in the airport alone, and also my time in Brampton. So it is a completely different world.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is Canada and the Forever Canada side against Alberta independence is trying to lean into the Canadian history that no longer exists, number one, but number two, they're actively erasing, and they've erased most of it, changing street names, tearing down statues. They're ashamed of their history, and they're ashamed, and they're trying to put shame onto the Canadian people and Canadian citizens. Alberta is trying to save a part of Western civilization here, period.
And it's funny because it's not just happening in Brampton, Ontario, but if you go to Richmond, for example, in Vancouver, these are the closer examples I know, or Surrey or North Vancouver, each is an enclave. So this multiculturalism that they try to design for everybody to get along and stuff, it doesn't happen that way. It becomes enclaves of people just living as they would back home, just somewhere else.
Well, and there's massive infighting between these enclaves.
And
it's not like they're getting along. I mean, the Canadian government wants to say, we're a multicultural melting pot, but they're not, because nobody's getting along, and that's the thing.
And if there's ever been an example for the fact that you can't just force multiculturalism to happen, is the UK, Canada, etc. Next. National Post says, quote, Ottawa should squash some strikes before they start. Employer group suggests employers are urging Carney's government to allow the Labour minister to preemptively limit strike action in sectors such as airlines, railroads, and ports if the minister believes it threatens the national public interest.
Well, and I've talked a lot about the federalization of the natural resource sector and other sectors. Carney building those mechanisms right now, keeping out foreign investments. But this is another mechanism he's going to want to build. He's going to want to squash unions, especially if the federal government's going to get in bed and be the major investor for a lot of these different industries. Unions are going to be a hurdle. They don't want it to be a hurdle once they're actually in power and making those investments. And once the citizens can see the federalization of a lot of these sectors, it's going to be a lot harder to squash unions. He's going to want to try to do it now, I think.
And unfortunately, a lot of those people probably did also vote for him.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but some were told to by their union leaders.
Well, there was the airport strike in Vancouver, and they all did vote for him, and that was the thing.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, Dr. Charlie Ward says, quote, sorry, Canada, Trump doesn't speak for all of us, not even half of us. I've never thought I'd see the day when our Canadian allies talk about standing up to fight against an attack by an American president. Quebec Premier François Legault specifically says today Mr. Trump decided to attack us.
And this looks like a freaking hostage video. It sounds like it. He looks frightened.
President Trump has decided to hit Canada and Quebec with 25% custom tariffs on all our exports to United States, except for energy, starting this Tuesday. This is unfortunate because Quebec, Canada, and United States have integrated economies. Free trade in North America benefits everyone, and launching a tariff war among allies will hurt everyone. So unfortunately, President Trump decided today to attack us. So we must stand up and fight to protect our economy and our jobs. Some sectors of our economy will be affected, but our government will protect Quebecers by helping affected businesses. As retaliatory measures, Canada is going to put 25% tariff on some American imports. But unfortunate events sometimes help and create opportunity. So I think it's an opportunity for some of our companies to replace American products, to develop new products, and to develop new markets.
And what a load of BS. And I'm going to tell you this, if Alberta gets its independence and we go zero tariff trade with the United States, which is very likely, this is going to set an example, and a president in Quebec is being hollowed out hard right now. Both Quebec and Ottawa are the ones that Trump's tariffs are hurting the most. And if their monopolies start to fall apart, if their industries start to fall apart, and then Alberta breaks free, gets independence, and goes zero tariff trade, and all the benefits that come with that, the Quebec voters are going to start wanting independence real quick.
Yeah, and I would also say that it seems like every single premier continues down the line of we're going to fight the USA, we're being attacked, blah, blah, blah.
Well, it looked like a hostage video. It's bad lighting. He was reading directly off the page, looking down, looking up, wide-eyed. I mean, it couldn't have been a worse look there.
They're scared because now they've seen that the government itself is not going to look after their own interests either, because he can't negotiate.
Ottawa and Quebec should be scared. They are being hollowed out, and they're done. The economic cliff has already been gone off of for especially those two provinces. Their solution is more remittance payments for the West. That needs to stop. The only way to stop those remittance payments is Alberta independence at this point.
David W. But let's go back to your comments. David W. Carlson says politicians in Canada generally and in Alberta specifically are patently self-serving. My MP Dane Lloyd is heading up the Stay in Canada campaign. What is he afraid of? Loss of pension and loss of power.
Yeah.
Jacqueline Lear said,
well, and there's another thing here. They're not going to stand up for Alberta independence because both Pierre Poilievre and Danielle Smith said that's not acceptable within their caucus, which is ridiculous. They're literally bringing censorship into their own caucuses.
Jacqueline Littler says, Danielle Smith and Conman Carney are not telling us the whole truth about the pipeline MOU. Exactly. Says they failed to mention a proposed CO2 pipeline from Fort Mac to approximately St. Paul and pump that CO2 1 to 2 kilometers.
Yeah, and I've talked a lot about this. I mean, day after day after day. I don't think Alberta's going to see much money from that MOU. I think she signed away the sovereignty to the federal government. I think he's trying to federalize the natural resource sector. And if you get into that MOU, what happens is the carbon taxes comes off the top along with a lot of other taxes. So the federal government gets their cut. But Alberta doesn't get a cut unless the pipeline is profitable. And Carney is directly running that pipeline to the shallow water port. So it won't be as profitable. And there's less profits the more taxes you put on the top line. So I think the federal government's going to have a lot of benefit, but the Albertan government, I don't think is. But non-politically engaged people just see a pipeline and think this is a good thing. It's not a good thing when you actually read into how Danielle Smith is signing away the sovereignty through the contract.
The message continued, pump that CO2 1 to 2 kilometers underground into sandstone. Google what happens when to sandstone when put under pressure. And also says, how about Kearney's 20 cent a can on imported food in cans? The Truth says, I can't wait for independence. Sick of Ottawa's stuff. Option Trader says, Alberta has the second largest proven oil reserves. Canada has high gas prices. Why does nobody point that out? Maybe start asking other Albertans why you pay high gas prices. Oh, people have been asking.
Oh, I point it out every episode. Every single episode we point this out. And why, there's a ton of things going wrong with Canada right now. It doesn't, Alberta is so well set up to be its own independent nation economically.
Philip Espa says, I guarantee you Canadians will go to the black market to get pew-pews. Protection of your life will outweigh the punishment of jail time. And I mean, for a lot of people, it is getting to that point, especially in cities, because right now cities are essentially ungovernable within Canada in many sections.
I just don't know. I would say yes to a lot of other countries like the United States and Mexico, but Canadians are just so freaking compliant. It's crazy.
The Truth says, not to mention your average citizen will be packing heat during their daily errands. James B says they tried this garbage in the 70s too. They had Leonard Nimoy saying we were all going to freeze to death with the climate change. Yeah, all the way since the 50s, even earlier than the 50s, around the 50s. B. Crony, hello, says if we don't leave within the next 5 to 10 years, a new religion is coming that will be pushed worldwide. It is No hides religion. I don't understand this message.
Well, yeah, what you do see is
There is a religion coming.
what you do see is globalization really tried to create one religion. You see Catholicism trying to unite with Islam and other things. They're allowing prayers within the Vatican Church from every other single religion. It's absolutely crazy. A lot of the things that are going on right now, and you're seeing. Well, I won't go too much into it.
John B says, I like having independence. I live in Arizona. You don't want to screw with control with people in our legislature here in our state.
Yeah.
Philip says, to your point, Guy, that small rally was infiltrated by Mike Freedom, honey. He sat in the driver's seat of the Unity bus and got a picture with Tommy that was published in Cochrane's newspaper, saying that it was the Forever Canada campaign, Forever Canadian campaign. That word was put in there in that article quite a few times. James B says, we all saw Tommy and his 20 retirees with their bus. Joke. They have 0 numbers in Alberta, period. Congrats to Mike for infiltrating.
Yeah, but the newspaper reported thousands. That was crazy.
Yes, that too. Again, with the gaslighting. But let's go into Alberta's Canada to continue to see the mess that the country is in.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And let's start with this from J Gen Xer saying, quote, Mark Carney has been Prime Minister for over a year. He promised 500,000 homes a year. The actual plan produces 26,000 over 5 years. Housing starts are down. He said affordability is improving.
And the 26,000 homes is over a 5-year period. So what's that, 5, 10, 15, 20, 20? That's just over 5,000 homes a year. That does nothing.
Okay, so Mark Carney has been Prime Minister for over a year now. And I think it's time we actually measure what he promised against what's happened, because the numbers are not what you were told. Let's start with housing. His signature promise. He stood in front of Canadians and said he would build 500,000 homes per year. That was the number, 500,000. The parliamentary budget officer looked at his actual plan and said it will produce 26,000 units over 5 years, not per year, over 5 years. And housing permits right now are down nearly 15% year over year. So that's promise one. He said affordability is getting better. He actually said that. The Fraser Institute, which tracks this stuff, says Canadians are still dealing with unaffordable housing, higher grocery prices, and incomes that aren't keeping up. And here's the one that got me. A poll taken on his 1-year anniversary found that 54% of Canadians, including his own Liberal voters, said he failed to deliver on cost of living. His own voters said that. Then there's trade. He told Canadians he built 20 new trade deals. 20. But over 75% of everything Canada sells still goes to the United States, where tariffs have tripled since he took office. He traveled to 25 countries in 1 year. Canada got a higher tariff.
And you can leave it there. And what I will say is a lot of people will say, well, what do you expect them to do? All those things are extremely solvable because you have the United States right there. Cost of living with food, just go zero tariff trade when it comes to food. Get rid of your food monopolies. This will massively benefit This will massively benefit the citizens of the country while you have to reorganize and figure out how to actually compete in the open market.
And again, it's also insane that at the beginning he said, oh, judge me on grocery prices, judge me on how good I am at negotiating. And the fact that now, because they put themselves in that position and because they get paid by the federal government, the journalists and the mainstream media can't really even point it out. They can't even say anything about it. Just watch their fellow Canadians suffer. Jonathan Kay says, quote, amazing result. The Law Society of BC put out garbage pedagogical materials for its members peddling the false 215 graves claim. When a lawyer called them out on the lie, the BC Law Society tried to smear him as a racist, a despicable act from a legal regulator. Now they've been forced to walk back the lie. Everyone in charge of that organization should resign in disguise.
Yeah, this was the biggest government-assisted hoax in Canadian history, and they were trying to implement legislation so they could give you a $25,000 fine and jail time without even having to go to court. You would basically go in front of a committee and they would decide. I'm glad there's finally being some pushback here and people are starting to wake up to this thing, because this could have really gone off the rails. It's already gone off the rails. It was about to get a lot worse with permanent legislation being written into law.
But I mean, this is insane from the National Post saying why the BC Law Society walked back claims of buried children. 2 years of litigation with a truth-seeking BC lawyer has ended in a settlement and more careful language about Kamloops residential school. But no full walk back, not fully saying they've never found anything or how much money has actually been paid out.
Well, there's billions being paid out, and we know that because there was tens of billions before the one of the elections of Trudeau's elections. It was basically a buyout to 4 votes, is what I took it as.
Exactly.
Because the entire thing was a hoax. There have been no bodies exhumed at this point. A lot of Canadians don't know that. When I found that out, I started asking people, and a small group did know.
And what's crazy is also the international community did call it out, as the Lion did report on the fact that nothing was found and how much money was being given out. And yet within Canada, both random people that you would talk to or try to raise a topic with, but also the mainstream media and the journalists, etc., the ones that were allowed to only give the parroted lies from the federal government, do continue to deny it. But next, Marzalaya says, major breaking, quote, Carney got caught. He quietly walked back previously announced cuts for refugees. Refugees and asylum seekers currently get better healthcare coverage than Canadians get. Canadians who pay taxes don't get this kind of free care or get 70% of costs covered by the government. The program is funded by taxpayers and costs nearly $1 billion.
And read the headline there.
The Toronto Star says, quote, Carney government restores some health coverage it had cut for refugees. Funny way of phrasing it.
Restores. This is ridiculous. Like, they were being called out. They were getting massive heat. So they made headlines by saying, oh, they were going to walk it back. And now quietly they want to try to restore it. And this is an absolute joke. Canadian citizens are being put last.
And we see where the priorities lie as well. Like what and who is the most important.
Well, a lot of these trade deals, especially with India, it looks like the trade deal is economic benefits for taking citizens.
But also with all kinds of numbers the current federal government continues to lie on, but also with job numbers. Danielle Fox says Canada's job math changed. CIBC says Canada's job market may be weaker than the official numbers suggest. You don't say. Its population estimates could eventually add 160,000 people to the 2025 count, 210,000 in 2026, and another 210,000 in 27, and 110,000 in 28.
Well, and this majorly changes statistics for unemployment and a lot of other things. And it's not just here. The Canadian government likes to recalculate the way they do math and their standards so they get better numbers on the other end.
Well, again, he's a banker, so he's really good at doing that. But more workers combined with weak job creation means higher unemployment and worse GDP per capita than we were originally told.
Well,
no kidding.
This is why Canada is in a bad place, because they're not even being honest with their citizens about their numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Canada's job market may be a lot worse than we originally anticipated, according to recent research from CIBC that argues that Canada may not have actually lost population at all. CIBC estimates that future revisions to Canada's population growth could add 160,000 people to the 2025 count, 210,000 in 2026, and another 210,000 in 2027, and then another 110,000 in 2028. Under that scenario, Canada's reported population decline in 2024 and 2025 disappears. Population growth would actually turn slightly positive by 7,500-ish people.
Well, pause it for a second. And you have to think there's a lot of other things that happen here. They've already passed the legislation to open up the floodgates again because they're saying, oh, we were negative in our numbers. We don't have enough population. Well, matter of fact, you did, and you shouldn't have passed that legislation. But now that that's passed, oh, we can come clean. And we also get better. We've already got our better statistics kind of in the books.
And I don't know if he'll go on to say it, but what's insane is that these numbers aren't because there's more babies being born, more Canadians being born, but more people being imported.
Economic news, except we've been battling this ongoing divergence between growing GDP and GDP per capita, or, which is probably the best measure of standard of living in Canada, especially when compared against the US. But if you change the denominator, the number of people, it changes these metrics. It also changes unemployment, right? And the immigration minister has said that they want to start tracking temporary residence exits, which would lead to further changes in these numbers as we start to get that data to actually change the number of people in the workforce. We know we saw this huge growth in Canada's population during the pandemic period when the government felt that we needed to import a bunch of temporary foreign workers to deal with a labor shortage. And so if Canada had more people than we originally thought, while unemployment or the number of jobs or employment level stayed roughly where we measured it, the labor market would end up reading weaker per person as a result of these revisions. And CIBC has been tracking this phenomena of what they call overstayers for a long time, where they felt that Canada wasn't properly counting the population growth in Canada, and that they felt that.
You can leave it there. And Canada isn't properly counting a lot of things, and they're inflating themselves, especially when they give their stance within the G7.
And again, that's how bankers work. That's what he's used to doing anyways. Fixing numbers. But now let's go back to your comments, and then we'll get into Alberta and the world. Michael Drader says, heaven forbid if there's a Quebecer actually hoping Alberta succeeds in a referendum.
Well, there is a couple, and we interviewed one of them. So
yeah, Rage Against Machine says, Carney, F out. Yes. Rage Against Machine says, quote, no, people are born subjects to distant power. Government is the servant of a free people, and when its authority ceases to serve their liberty, the people retain the right to govern themselves.
Well, and Alberta is the roadmap for the people to take back control of their governments. These governments around the world, especially in the West, their elites have gone completely rogue. They don't even ask the questions or put it to a vote for mass immigration because they know the people are against it. And important questions, whether it's carbon tax as well, you're never going to get a say on that. They're just going to pass that, period. They don't care what the citizens want and don't want anymore. And it's time for the citizens to start taking back control of their governments.
The Truth 999 says, we Albertans love our American brothers and sisters and always have and always will.
Absolutely.
Good. And Rage Against Machine, thank you so much for the $10 super chat saying, it's a quote, saying, quote, we were not born to be governed without our consent. We were born free, and free peoples have the right to govern themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of people have forgotten about that. Yeah. They've been trained out of it, and now they have cognitive dissonance, even thinking that they could one day maybe be free, or that they should be free.
Well, is there an option to have no taxes? Yeah, there are other places in the world that have that, and citizens should not be taxed at this point. Mm-hmm. There's other ways of coming up with revenue.
But thank you so much, Rage Against Machine. And John B says, the truth, once Trump accepts Alberta being an independent country, he's in the U.S. We will make sure trade and other things are done to make sure you prosper.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say another.
Benefits the U.S.
I'm going to say another thing here. When Alberta gets its independence, I truly believe the United States administration and Donald Trump, or if a JD Vance is in there, are going to want Alberta to secede, because that's going to send a message to the rest of the world. You want to be the United States trading partner, whether you're Panama or Greenland or Alberta or other places in the world. They don't want to colonize these places. They want strong trading partners with strong ideology that aligns with theirs, so we can bring back the revitalization of the West and Western values.
That's the whole point of the national security strategy. one of the points. James B says, hey, let go. Walmart wants their $20 lightning back. And Option Trader says, oh, and I agree with this, says, no such thing as multiculturalism. That's why it doesn't work. A nation can only have one culture. You honor your culture in small ways and have festivals, but you exist in one culture of your nation you live in. Otherwise, the whole concept of even a culture or a nation also breaks down, as we're currently seeing.
Absolutely.
Or other cultures take over the one that used to be there.
Well, especially when you're trying as hard as you can to erase your own culture and you're importing these other very strong cultures. What do you think is going to happen? Canada has lost their identity at this point, and they're trying to put up this hoax against Alberta independence. Like, oh, we still have this identity. You've never had it.
Yeah, they're only using it when it's convenient, and they're using it, not literally upholding it. James B says to Option Trader, try to celebrate Christmas in other countries like Iran. Try celebrating Christmas in Canada. They don't do that anymore. It's happy holidays. It's no Christmas decorations of any kind that has any kind of religious connotations, unless it's other religions. Then you can have it.
Well, actually, I was watching something very strange. They were trying to say Israel was the #1 growing place for Christians, but then in the debate, the statistic came up. The #1 place for the growing Christian population is actually Iran. And I didn't know that. Yeah. But I did know there was a significant Christian population in Iran. I just didn't know it was growing that fast. Maybe not since the war, though.
Mm-hmm. Lori P. Hello says, I don't think Maxime B is a good fit for Alberta independence. I hope he stays away.
Yeah, and a lot of people in Alberta don't like him. I personally do like him, and I think he throws a lot into the mix. I wish he would have been on the debate stage with the national debate for the prime minister last time. They did not want those talking points coming up. But I will say, yeah, a lot of Albertans didn't like him. I mean, we interviewed him. That was the most pushback we ever had on an interview. Yeah. And people might need to be honest with him and tell him a different province might be best. Yeah. That being said, there are a lot of people that do like him there. So maybe if he picks the right place, it's just going to be very hard. I don't think he would win a Danielle Smith leadership type of role. He could win a seat or a place there, though.
But at the same time, I do understand the point of people saying, well, is he only using us? Kind of like Polyev already did, and Danielle, and everybody else, Jake Kenny, et cetera, et cetera. And as you mentioned.
And that's the thing with this whole Tucker Carlson movement that's happening in the United States. It really reminds me of Jason Kenney, Danielle Smith, having the populist talking points and then ready to stab you in the back.
And interestingly enough, James B says, agreed, Mad Max is no good for Alberta. And the Truth 99 says, well said, no to Mad B. Max B.
Well, and they had to actually cancel a little bit of his tour as well. They're having trouble selling tickets, I guess. It might be an indication. So I hope he doesn't waste a lot of time, and I hope he knows the polling, and I hope if he knows he runs somewhere, he's going to win or not. I hope he's just not playing it off the cuff and being like, oh, Alberta wants independence, they'll vote for me.
John B says, why does Alberta pay high gas prices when you have a bunch of oil and natural gas? That is the question we're all asking ourselves for the past decades, centuries.
Because you're part of Canada.
Because that's why. Yeah. Drew Mitchell, hello, says, it's sad how many misinformed Albertans I speak to that actually think Alberta receives more from Ottawa than we pay out and fears losing pensions. We have a lot of work to do. And in the pensions thing, a lot of people, just in general in Canada, but also in Alberta, have no idea how their own money that they've invested is being essentially gambled on in foreign markets, including India, and being lost. That money is being lost.
What's even crazier than that, if you listen to people in Quebec, they think they're paying more than they take from remittance payments. And that is absolutely crazy when you look at the numbers.
James Hunt says, unless I got this wrong, the carbon capture is not just on this new West pipeline, but it'll be put on all pipelines and retroactive taxes as well.
Yeah, she's signing away the economic sovereignty of Alberta retroactively. Like, Danielle Smith is a federalist through and through, and she's selling the things she's doing as she's getting independence and sovereignty for Alberta. It's doing the exact opposite. She's signing it away and selling it as freedom.
James B says, Clowney needs to take a long walk on a short pier. Option Trader says, I challenge that claim. Carney has announced multiple MOUs about trade deals, no firm set date or details or start dates. Carney's bold-faced lies, and your media seconds it because they have no other option to.
Yeah, he doesn't memorandums of understanding, not actually signing trade deals. There's a huge difference there.
Philip Vespa says it's gotten so bad that it's more economical to buy a vehicle you can sleep in. Renting leaves you with no mobility, and it's far too expensive for a detached home.
Yeah, but you live in Canada, and it gets freaking cold, and that is the big problem. If it was a warmer weather country, like...
It's insane that in a first world country that it calls itself or likes to be called and then be the example for everybody else with the great Mark Carney, the Davos man, that people are talking about and actually having to sleep in their cars when one time they didn't have to. Before they didn't have to, and now they do.
Yeah.
Because of circumstances beyond their control. Philip Vespa says, I know it's not good, but that is what some people have to resort to. I see it all the time online. That should be an alarm all by itself.
I knew quite a few people that used to do that when I used to live in Vancouver.
God. I mean, we were kind of close to. James B says, only with this ridiculous government do we see 2 + 2 = 7.43971. And Philip Vespa says, lastly, we need to hold a contest for the design of Alberta's national flag. I think that the primary colors will be black and gold, whatever it looks like.
Yeah, we need to hold off on that right now. The Alberta blue flag is the best flag we can have because they can't ban it for hate speech right now. If it was any other symbol, they would be trying to ban it.
John B says, agreed, Guy. And the Truth says, I say Merry Christmas to you, people. Thank you. Same. Oh, Christmas in July already passed. Rage Against the Machine says they want to destroy our belief system. And on that note, let's go into Alberta and the world, and then I'll continue reading all your comments. And let's start with this from Glenn Beck, which some of you have already seen. But Glenn Beck says, quote, Trump should propose the same law that Argentina President Javier Milei just introduced if politicians run a deficit stop getting paid.
Well, and I played this clip yesterday, but I thought this was absolutely fantastic, especially with Alberta fighting for its independence. It needs stuff like this.
And what's going on in how Canada functions.
And this is what you get with like a politician that's willing to think outside the box and try new things, and the rest of the world can see if it works or not. We don't want a one world government where everybody's doing the exact same thing, like what happened during the jibby jab era, because once you do the wrong thing, everybody does the wrong thing.
And sometimes those things, those attempts might not work or might not fully work to what they said, but at least they got tried.
Javier Milei has dramatically changed Argentina. Dramatically. Listen to his fiscal shackle law that he just passed. Listen to this.
This reform won't work on its own. It's part of a broader program that includes a reform we've called the fiscal shackle, a capital market reform, and an insurance market reform, which I will now proceed to explain. Regarding the fiscal shackle, it's a permanent fiscal rule that will ensure Argentina cannot vote for or maintain a deficit budget. Why do we need a law, and why isn't the goodwill of Congress enough? Because history has taught us that Congress is the great ally of public spending, with last year being a recent example when we fought tooth and nail against dozens of laws that sought to trigger the state's bankruptcy. The thing is, politicians have no incentive to look out for the pockets of Argentines because they're never the ones who pay the price. That's why this project will ensure that whoever causes the damage finally pays for it. In practice, the fiscal shackle will work like this. If the fiscal result is in deficit for several consecutive months, Congress will have a few weeks to bring the accounts back into balance. If it doesn't, an automatic shutdown will go into effect. Non-essential state activities will be halted, new spending will be frozen, no contracts will be awarded, no staff will be hired, and discretionary transfers to the provinces will be stopped. And most importantly, for the duration of the shackle, the president, vice president, senators, deputies, ministers, secretaries, and undersecretaries won't receive a single peso of their salary. For the first time in our history, if politicians don't do their job, the politicians will pay the price, not the people.
And absolutely fantastic policy. And it's not to say Javier Milei isn't without corruption scandals, but it's absolutely fantastic, that policy he's bringing in. And I hope other nations pay attention.
But also, and as I said yesterday, Argentina's history and its economic history is insane, but it also should be a lesson to every single other country around the world as to what happens when you do exactly the opposite of this, and which is why you have to put on now a fiscal shackle and you have to actually put in measurements to stop this. But has anybody paused and thought about what the same idea would happen if it could ever even happen in Canada, for example? No, because Canada is way too dependent on all of that already sank Argentina for the longest time.
Well, and all the money in Canada and the United States under Biden was doing the same thing. Everything goes to causes outside of Canada because that's how the money laundering machine works. As soon as it leaves the country's shores, it's no longer tracked. And that's what they want. That's why they want to give it to foreign causes and not invest it within the country, because it's when it's invested with infrastructure or anything else within the country, it can be tracked.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, speaking of, RMC's 86 says, quote, today Mark Carney confirmed that he will not budge on supply management in the USMCA negotiations. This is also Dominic LeBlanc's position. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer has been very clear on the American side.
Yeah, and supply management are the monopolies in Canada, and they're hurting the Canadian people themselves, and they're protecting the business class and the monopoly class. Donald Trump should break Mark Carney's back with this and make it a non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is really important. And we can see that the Liberal Party is very loyal to this issue of supply management.
Will supply management be sacrificed? Absolutely not. Is that confirmed? That is confirmed.
We're very competitive in dairy production and cheese, and the Canadians made a commitment to us under the USMCA to allow us access under certain types of quotas. However, in implementing that access, they have said you can only sell essentially to co-ops, which are owned by Canadian dairy farmers, who obviously have less of an incentive to get American dairy. But when you look at the EU, they allow EU dairy not only to go to those destinations, but they can also sell them to retail, to wholesale, to food service. That's the kind of access we expected out of USMCA and that we're not getting. And for us, we want them fixed.
Yeah, and they tell the Americans one thing in English, and then they speak in French, because most of these food monopolies lie within the Laurentian elites in Quebec. So they think, though, the Americans will never know. We'll just say it in French. I was thinking Quebec. I was going to say it in Quebec.
But they also, same as what Trudeau used to do, whenever they don't want things getting out too much, they usually say it in French.
Mm-hmm.
That's what French is useful for in Canada. Nothing else. Raging Ghost Machine says, Yahoo, best Christmas present ever, that being independence. Michael Drader says that there's That's where I make Jeff Dunham's character, Walter. I've been meaning to say this for a long time. Screw you, it's Merry Christmas. Exactly. I can't do a Jeff Dunham voice. Rage Against the Machine says, glad to meet you, John. Yes, thank you, John, from the US for being here. And Rage Against the Machine says, exactly, guy. And John says, that would be nice for Santa to bring, that being independence. Yes, because the truth says, Grandma asked me what I wanted for Christmas this year. How old are you? I said independence. I don't get asked what I want for Christmas anymore. Not even by you.
There's people that ask you.
James B says bacon for Christmas breakfast, especially given the invasion that's currently happening in Canada and the US. We should all start eating more bacon. Remember when you and I traded
turkey ham's going to be the only thing available. Oh no, that's ham though still, I guess. Ooh, it's thundering. Okay, let's continue to go because the power might go out.
James B says, I enjoy being fluent in sarcasm. Same here. The truth says, taking care of grandma is a blessing. Oh, okay, that's why. Fair enough. Some days are challenging, but still a blessing. And yes, I concur with that as well. The truth says I turned grandma from liberal to conservative, wanting independence. And again, it is ingrained in most people, especially the older generation. It's just they kind of forgot about it because they got lulled into a false sense of, I don't know if it's hope or security or what it is, but with the elbows up and the insane boomers. Philip Espa says, I like Maxine. I don't know what these people are talking about. He is welcome to talk about independence anytime because he cares. Talk about? Yes, I concur with that too. Max has held consistent opinions throughout his leadership. And exactly, I think that is the most important point to compare it to PP.
Yeah, his platform hasn't changed, and I really liked him. I just think with the amount of pushback we got, I was shocked with it. I think he may be better off running in a different province, actually.
BC, I would even say, like somewhere up to the Bible Belt. By the start of the sane part of
the problem with Maxime Bernier, he doesn't want to just be a small political figure. He wants to be the head. He wants Danielle Smith's type of role in a province. And I don't know what province he can actually win in.
Option Trader says, how many billions of your tax dollars will the tar sand companies have to spend to build out carbon capture? There's physically nothing up there. Everything has to be built just to support the actual workers who build things.
Well, it's not meant, what it's meant to do is keep investment out of Canada. So the federal government will be the only investor. And that's how you get the federalization of natural resources and other industries.
John B says, President Milei is a good Argentine president. Not the best, but he's done better than most people, I would say.
He's great.
And the truth says, hold all politicians accountable. And as we were saying yesterday, I mean, they should be the ones that are tracked 24/7, where we can see every single message, every single shit they take, every single time they have to pee. We should, as citizens that elect them, should be able to see that, not the other way around, where they want access to all our information and they want to be able to hide all of theirs.
Well, Doug Ford's passing laws, so to protect his privacy, it needs to be politicians have no privacy, period. And that should be part of the job. They get paid well, and part of the job should be no transparency on your phone, your computer, at your house, or anything else, period. And citizens should be afforded a ton of privacy.
John B says lots of Canadians have moved to Arizona, actually, to the point where we saw Alberta...
Independence petition being signed.
Thank you. Yes, a bunch of independence petitions being signed. I forgot the word. The truth says Arizona and Alberta. They both start with A. James B says, I worked in the USA for a few years. It was a good time, especially the Philly cheesesteak. Oh, you worked in Philly?
Yeah.
Option Trader says, it's funny how no politicians ever go to the tar sands. Each plant has its own airstrip, but Canadians need to see it. Fort Mac is a 30-minute drive, the actual plants and the area. I'm guessing you worked in that sector. And continues, opinions would change if you saw what generates the wealth of your nation.
Yeah, I used to work in mining as well as the oil sector. And man, I've been into some crazy remote mining camps, but it gave me a whole new appreciation for how things actually run. And when our power went out the other day, was that yesterday or the day before?
The day before.
The day before. It gives you really appreciation for what actually makes society run. Exactly. And our water went out this morning for a couple hours.
And I will say this as a woman, that men build all of it.
Yeah.
And we need men.
Well, there's one or two lesbians, I guess.
The odd one out there. One time I saw a lesbian female porta potty worker picking up porta potties. Lori P says he's not suitable for Alberta. Maxime Bernier. James B says very briefly in Pennsylvania he lived. I've never had a Philly cheesesteak. Always I kind of want to try it. but it's not my
I love Philly
it's not my kind of
cheesesteaks.
food, but I want to try
I
it.
actually watch little shows that talk about different Philly cheesesteaks, the way they make them and stuff.
I watch shows about Korean food.
You would like, and they had a Korean Philly cheesesteak actually.
That might be good.
I hate Korean food, by the way.
Yeah, I love Korean and Thai food. He hates it. Lori P says many people will turn away from independence with Max involved. I think he should be able to speak on it. I don't know how much help he would be actually doing stuff for it.
I like him
because of the rejection.
I like him, but I would say hopefully he does his polling beforehand because it might turn out really bad for him. And if that happens again on a national level and he gets that much bad press, it wouldn't be good for him trying to run somewhere else after that. He needs to pick the right place to run so he has success.
John B says Philly cheesesteaks in Pennsylvania are excellent. James B says it was in a small shop in a gas station of all things, but damn, you could eat them cold for breakfast. They were so good. I cannot eat cold food that's supposed to be warm.
Oh,
you
yeah,
do
I
that.
can.
He does it all the time. Cold pizza. John B says, will they bring in Max just for that reason? Just to support independence?
No, because I don't think he garners enough support. I thought he was going to garner a lot of support in Alberta because I like him, but then just every time we bring him up, the chat really doesn't like him. We got a lot of emails negative about him. There are a lot of Alberta independence content creators like John Bolton, like us, that do like him. So within the independent media sphere, he would have a lot of support, but with the people themselves, it doesn't seem to be a good fit right now.
Yeah. And I think it would also be wise of him to understand that.
Yeah. Well, he might do better in Saskatchewan, actually.
That's the one I was going to
Because
mention.
he needs to go to a very, very right-wing province, and the only other one I can think of is going to be Saskatchewan. And especially if he's willing to actually get their movement off the ground, because they got a couple legislative hurdles in their way. If he would make promises to guarantee a vote for independence, that could bode well in Saskatchewan. And Saskatchewan needs a lot of help right now. I don't know if if a citizen-led movement can actually bring it to fruition because they have legislative hurdles.
Philip Vespa says to Lori P, he's not involved, just wants to lend a helping hand. The grassroots are the movement. That will not change. Hopefully. And John B says, oh man, you need to try Philly cheesesteaks. If I'm ever in the area, I will. Rage says, cheesesteak is awesome. Now we're just talking about food. James B says, does your name here have anything to do with Sting or the police? Asking Rage Against the Machine. Interesting, actually. I also want to know that. And over to UMBLE quickly, Real Fringe, hello, says good evening from Alberta. Taxes extortion, which I fully agree with. KP4U says good evening, everyone. Good evening to Fringe. And KP4U says awesome show. Thank you. And says happy holidays is just satanic. Merry Christmas, Nat. I know, Merry Christmas.
And I do believe taxes is theft when it comes to citizens, but when it comes to businesses and natural resources, we're going to have to build infrastructure somehow. So I'm okay with medium and large sized businesses as well as the natural resource sector being taxed.
Oh, we finally have an answer about Rage Against the Machine's name. It says, no, James, it's just how I feel. And funnily enough, the band Rage Against the Machine actually went the complete opposite and started working for the machine during the Jibby Jab era. But speaking of the Jibby Jab era, now we're moving on over to RUMBLE. You can find our username right here. There's a 30-second wait screen. Before you go over there with us to talk about stories that YouTube doesn't like us to talk about here, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video because, again, it really does help us out. And thank you so much for the super chat, too. To Rage Against the Machine. Okay, let's go over there now. 30-second wait screen, then we'll pop on over there.